Today's film is one that I have not watched in a very long time. It's the 1994 Leprechaun 2, also known as One Wedding and a Lot of Funerals, which to me is kind of misleading. 5 is a decent amount, but I don't really think that's a lot of funerals. Not for a horror film, that's kind of a meager death count. The film was distributed by Trimark Pictures, and it's the second and last film in the Leprechaun franchise to receive a theatrical release. So obviously the film didn't do too well, and it really is just a very basic, flat story. It does become a bit dull at times. Even the background bagpipe music, which is used throughout the film, becomes annoying and tiresome after a while. I get that we're doing the Ireland theme, and generally bagpipes really aren't that bad, but do you have to have one playing in the background like every 5 minutes? I mean, give me a break. The film opens just kind of as a, I guess you could say, a flashback type deal. It's the Leprechaun's 1000th birthday. He is able to claim a bride on St. Patrick's Day. The only catch is he has to make her sneeze 3 times without someone saying "God bless you." Unfortunately, the leprechaun happens to have chosen the daughter of his slave, so obviously he isn't going to allow that, and he says the words. By doing so, the bloodline is basically cursed, so that on the next 1000th birthday, the leprechaun will seek out a descendant of O'Day, who was the slave. And honestly, by that point in time, who cares? He's going to be long gone. He's not going to know who that next girl was, so whatever. So we basically skip to modern day, and we have a young boy, Cody, who is dating Bridget, I guess you could say just a very high-strung 16-year-old. She's very stubborn, but not too high on the acting skills either. Kind of a stiff Van Damme type delivery, but obviously she is the descendant of O'Day. Cody, unfortunately, happens to live with his uncle, who also acts as his legal guardian. His uncle has a drinking problem, so this forces Cody to break a lot of their dates in order to support themselves, as the Uncle Morty owns a haunted house or haunted ghost tour type deal. So he obviously has to make sure that there's a means of support that is constantly coming in. But obviously this infuriates Bridget, and I did want to stop just really quick because the tourists during this scene I thought were just very interesting. We have Kimmy Roberts, who I mostly know from Twin Peaks, and she is just an awesome comedic actress. And we also have Clint Howard playing her husband, which he has a very familiar face. I just have a lot of trouble placing which films he's been in. The only one I can think of right now, right off the top of my head, is Ice Cream Man, so he's definitely been around as well. Just getting back on track here, sorry. Cody takes them on their haunted tour, drops off Bridget at the go-kart track, and she basically just kind of implies that she is no longer interested in seeing him anymore. So after the tour is over, he goes over to apologize. By this point in time, the leprechaun has already gotten wind of her, and he's already stalking the house. With the flowers present, he takes advantage of this to cause her to sneeze. And on the 3rd sneeze, when Cody attempts to say "God bless you" unknowingly, the leprechaun strangles him with a telephone cord, because landlines were still around back then. So obviously the leprechaun, now having revealed himself and pretty much scaring the daylights out of everyone with his ugly mug, kidnaps the girl and takes her back to his bachelor pad in order to procreate. During the struggle with Cody when trying to save Bridget, one of the gold coins had actually stayed behind, so the leprechaun leaves her behind in his, I don't want to say dungeon, what is it? Some sort of like an underground house. He kind of lives under a tree. But he leaves her behind, and he goes back for his coin. Somehow Bridget chases after him and winds back up in her house. So she meets back up with Cody for a while before being kidnapped again. And we later discover that the magic in this coin is actually what's protecting Cody and preventing the leprechaun from killing him. So having made that discovery, he's reluctant to give up that coin before saving Bridget. Luckily, while hanging out at his Uncle Morty's regular hangout at the bar, he runs across a little person who's passing out gold-covered chocolate. This later does come into play. While at the bar, though, Morty actually challenges the leprechaun to a drinking contest. So once they get the leprechaun slobbering and drunk, they pretty much think they've had him. He escapes them, and they later manage to trap him in a wrought iron safe, which in this film we make a new discovery that wrought iron can harm a leprechaun. Obviously in the first film we discovered that their weakness is four-leaf clovers. So they're adding to the mythology. We also add to the mythology that leprechauns grant wishes, which I was unaware of. But Morty, after having trapped the leprechaun, foolishly demands his wishes. He wants the leprechaun's gold. So he becomes impregnated with it, basically, and he wastes his second wish on releasing the leprechaun, and the third one on having the gold removed. So it is removed by C-section, and Morty dies, and he deserved it. And I do want to just skip back just a brief moment here, and I'm sorry I'm getting myself out of order a little, but after the leprechaun fled the bar, he goes to a coffee shop to sober up. One of the actors who is playing the part of the barista, basically in a bit part, is Michael McDonald, which I mostly recognize him as being one of the long-term actors on Mad TV, so obviously he has an interest in improv, and he was a member of the Groundling improv group. He also has the distinction of having written and directed films for Roger Corman, so I just figured that was kind of interesting. But you know, it's basically just kind of these oddball people in the film that keep my interest, because it really isn't the best in the Leprechaun series. It is pretty boring and just plain blah, but there really aren't too many comedy type moments in this film either. The first film, you had goofy things like the leprechaun killing someone with a pogo stick, or chasing someone down on a skateboard. In this film, sadly, pretty much one of the only things that just kind of made me snicker a bit was in the ending sequence when Bridget manages to remove her gold collar. She throws it at the leprechaun's head and knocks off his hat, and just the reaction to the audience realizing that he's bald kind of made me chuckle a bit. But really, there just wasn't too much going on in this movie. I found it pretty dull. But in the ending sequence, the leprechaun basically poses as Bridget and tries to get Cody to return the coin so that they can flee in peace, so that they would no longer be bothered. Cody obviously just kind of catches on to this because she's just being a little too hot and heavy, trying to convince him to leave the coin behind. So this is where the piece of chocolate comes into play, and he tricks the leprechaun, then stabs it with an iron crowbar, and they make their escape. But that is kind of pretty much all there was going on with this movie. It was just pretty dull. But that is pretty much all I have for you guys today. I will talk to you later.